For thrill seekers and urban explorers, the allure of a derelict amusement park is undeniable. A concrete graveyard of lost joy, where nature slowly reclaims the grand Ferris wheels and twisted roller coaster tracks. However, many seasoned exploration groups strictly avoid specific locations in Southeast Asia, classifying them as actively malicious rather than merely abandoned. It isn't just the inherent structural instability of the rotting metal that keeps locals far away. Only a few decades ago, these massive complexes were filled with the constant sound of laughter and the mechanical hum of expensive, modern machinery. However, local urban legends speak of a specific, terrible event, a mechanical failure at the highest peak of the roller coaster. During peak hours that led to its sudden and chaotic closure. The electricity was cut off years ago, and the metal is heavily coated in rust. But locals maintain that the physical state of the park is irrelevant to its dangers. They believe that the powerful metaphysical entities created by that initial tragedy never truly stopped riding the attractions, repeating their final moments over and over again. Deciding to ignore the explicit warnings and climb the rusty, leaning fences after midnight is your first and final mistake. The unwritten laws of these abandoned parks are not merely suggestions for your safety. They are survival protocols dictated by the very spirits that haunt the ruins. Today, we are moving beyond the typical urban exploration video. Instead, we have spent hours meticulously reviewing recovered and often classified urbex footage to piece together the terrifying, unwritten rulebook of abandoned theme parks, a set of constraints that you must never, ever break if you find yourself within their walls after darkness falls. Rule number 8 of the Subterranean Rulebook dictates that you must never, under any circumstances, sit inside an empty Ferris wheel cabin if it is resting perfectly at the bottom boarding platform. This is not a warning about structural safety, but a critical protocol against spiritual entrapment. This specific cabin is often found pristine, almost welcoming, while the rest of the Ferris wheel is actively collapsing, acting as a direct lure for tired or curious trespassers. Local folklore insists that the specific spirits of those who fell from the apex of the wheel during the initial tragedy do not move on. Instead, they permanently occupy the lower cabins. They sit silently in the deep, freezing shadows, waiting patiently for a living passenger to occupy the empty seat next to them. Driven by an agonizing need to share their terror and complete their final unfinished cycle on the ride by sacrificing a fresh soul in their place. Witnesses who have broken this rule report that as soon as you occupy the seat, the temperature drops below freezing. The ancient rusted gears below the platform will suddenly groan and begin to turn entirely on their own power. Without any electricity, the cabin will slowly and relentlessly begin to ascend into the dark, foggy night sky, locking you into a horrifying shared experience with an entity that will ensure you do not survive to reach the ground again. Moving on to rule number 7, which applies specifically to the attraction known as the Fun House. As you walk past the grand, ornate entrance with its row of cracked and dirty mirrors, you must pay close attention to your own reflection. If you notice your reflection standing perfectly still or moving at a different pace while you are actively walking forward, you must not, under any circumstances, make eye contact or show any signs that you have noticed the discrepancy. The central myth of the mirror maze is that the shattered glass acts as a direct physical conduit, trapping the souls of lost children who used to frequent the park. They cannot leave the maze and have become corrupted by decades of isolation and darkness. They actively use your own stolen reflection as a localized anchor, exerting tremendous force from within the mirror to violently pull your physical body through the cracked glass and into their perpetual cold labyrinths. The most dangerous part of this interaction is curiosity. Staring too long at the anomalous reflection allows the entity on the other side to lock onto your consciousness, completing a complex psychic tether. In one sudden, violent motion, it will trade places with you, leaving your spirit permanently imprisoned within the freezing glass while it walks free in your body, using your voice and your face to continue its malicious hunt on the physical plane. Rule number 6 instructs urban explorers that they must not take higher resolution flash photographs of the various decayed mascot statues, specifically focusing on the ones that are missing significant parts like their eyes or entire heads. This protocol exists because these mascots were not just empty costumes. They were designed by the original cult that built the park as physical vessels to house minor demonic entities, acting as silent, permanent sentinels and traps for the spiritually weak. When the park closed in a panic, the heavy mascot costumes were abandoned in place. Locals observed that dark, malicious entities that survived the initial disaster have nested deep within these hollow plastic shells, finding a familiar and welcoming structure. Security guards stationed at the park during the brief time it was closed reported seeing the eyes of these static statues moving independently, and seeing a dark, viscous, and unnatural liquid constantly seeping out of the eye sockets. The mechanism of this trap is the sudden burst of high-intensity light. The camera flash acts as a powerful energetic trigger, temporarily blinding the entity on the other side, while simultaneously waking it from its dormant, purely observational state. Bypassing their typical protocols, the blind and newly awakened entity will launch its powerful plastic vessel in a direct, vicious lunge towards the source of the flash, blindly attacking the closest living thing. Rule number 5 is perhaps the most universally accepted among Asian urban explorers. If you hear the faint, distorted, tinkling sound of the carousel music box playing in the absolute distance, you must immediately cover your ears with your hands and begin humming loudly to drown out the noise. Under no circumstances should you move towards the sound to investigate its source, as the carousel is located near a dangerous cluster of collapsed maintenance buildings. There is absolutely no electricity to power the amplifiers, and the music box mechanism was destroyed decades ago. The haunting melody is not being produced by mechanical means. It is a localized auditory hallucination and psychological law created specifically by the park's darkest and most powerful original inhabitants. The melody is designed to bypass conscious thought, interfacing directly with your subconscious and implanting a recursive loop of desire and curiosity. The hypnotic melody gradually gains complexity as you draw nearer, subtly altering your perception of reality and time. The recursive musical loop is designed to override your survival instinct, putting you into a glazed-over state where you blindly follow the music until you are standing directly inside the dangerous mechanical underbelly of the rusted carousel structure. Your mind will think you are safe, right up until the point where you fall into the open maintenance shaft. Moving to rule number 4, which applies to the walk-through haunted house attraction. As you enter the main foyer and begin your walk through the pitch-black maze, you must pay very close attention to the various static props and animatronic skeletons. If you notice any of these props, specifically the ones near the ritual altar at the midway point, you must immediately abandon the tour and run back towards the entrance without saying a word. The dangerous legend surrounding the haunted house is that local malicious cults use this abandoned, cursed location during the new moon to conduct actual necromancy and blood rituals. They purposefully leave behind gruesome, highly realistic decaying props strapped to the rusted torture racks. These organic materials are designed to act as physical anchors, providing a temporary food source and stable vessel for wandering spirits that the cults successfully summoned but could not control. The specific mechanism of Rule 4 is the physical interaction. If you have noticed the change in the props, the entity inhabiting the new organic anchor has also noticed you. In the absolute darkness, where your eyes cannot differentiate between prop and predator, a pale, rotting hand with long, dirty nails will suddenly reach out and clamp its ice-cold fingers onto your shoulder. It is not trying to physically hurt you. It just needs to know you are alive so it can complete the tether. Rule number 3 dictates a specific protocol if you are walking through the overgrown grass near the roller coaster tracks at night and you accidentally drop your primary flashlight or smartphone. If the object falls directly into the tall, thick weeds surrounding the rusted metal supports of the coaster, you must immediately abandon the expensive item and accept its loss. Do not bend down, do not try to search for it using your backup light, and do not use your hands to clear the brush. The tall weeds around the coaster foundations are not empty. They are the primary nesting and hunting grounds for crawling shadow entities known as nesters. These formless masses are highly intelligent and actively collect lost human items, specifically high-technology devices, to build complex nesting structures under the decaying metal roller coaster supports. They use the items to better understand human technology and to act as highly effective lures for new victims. Bending your body to search for your lost item places your face perfectly level with their primary striking zone, making it a fatal mistake. The nesters are incredibly fast and use coordinated group attacks. As you clear the brush, a massive contorted shadow figure will rise up silently from the grass directly behind you. Before you can react to its presence, it will grab your ankles and violently drag your entire body down onto the electrified third rail located in the hidden foundations. Moving to rule number 2, which applies specifically to the entrance of the park at 3 in the morning. If you are standing near the main gate and see a solitary figure of a small child, wearing brightly colored vintage clothing, skipping playfully through the faded ticket turnstiles, you must not, under any circumstances, follow that child into the park. You must immediately walk in the opposite direction and find a new route around the complex. Living children do not play in hazardous, collapse-prone ruins at 3 in the morning. This entity is highly intelligent, a shape-shifting predator that adopts the specific appearance of an innocent child to exploit human curiosity and empathy. It is purposefully leading you away from the established, stable paths of the park and towards a hidden, unmapped cluster of open maintenance shafts in the maintenance buildings, designed to be almost invisible in the overgrown weeds. Following the ghostly child into the forbidden area completes its primary objective. The specific design of this trap requires you to follow its skipping movements until you are standing at the very edge of the dark, flooded maintenance shaft. The entity will then suddenly stop and look at you, dropping its child guise to reveal its true, horrifying form, just as it pushes your physical body down into the absolute black void, ensuring nobody will hear you call for help. Finally, rule number 1 is the most important. If you're anywhere within the amusement park and the ancient, rusted loudspeakers attached to the leaning wooden poles suddenly crackle with electrical sparks and announce that the park is closing, you have exactly 1 minute to escape. The speaker announcement is not an error. It is a critical warning issued by the very spirits that haunt the park, signaling that they are temporarily overriding the park's natural state. This specific announcement is the activation signal for the nocturnal hunt, a recursive loop of the final moments of the park's construction crew. Hundreds of tall, shadowy figures will simultaneously emerge from the fog and overgrown attractions. They are not merely observers, they are actively malicious and highly aggressive, released specifically to clear out any remaining trespassers. Your 60 seconds of grace is all you have before they converge on your location from every direction. Abandoned amusement parks are empty for a very good reason, and it is rarely because the original owners simply ran out of money. The rusted rides may be broken and the power may be cut off, but the spiritual mechanisms created by the park's construction and tragic history are still fully operational, silently waiting for the next curious trespasser to enter their realm. Every broken attraction is a carefully constructed trap, designed to claim new victims and repeat the cycle of terror. Subscribe to Urban Tallies for more analysis of recovered footage. And the next time you are driving past an abandoned park and see an empty carousel spinning silently in the wind, do not stick around to watch. The park is closing and the hunt is about to begin. Whatever you do, do not enter.